Hello, hello. Welcome to Making a Marketer. This is episode 7. Today we're talking marketing a startup, which is something that I have some experience with as well. But I have two great guests on today, Rachel Stefan, and she's with Snowball event and an event influencer, and she's going to tell us more about that. And Scott Vitale with Spigot Labs. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Awesome. So here we are on Facebook Live. So if you're listening to the replay, this is our mid-month. It's a bit delayed, but our shorter show that's 30 minutes. And so we're going to hopefully cram a whole lot of really good information into this half hour. So if you're listening to the replay, thank you for listening, and if you're watching the replay, thank you for that as well. So I am a marketing consultant, and I have a client called Event Collab, and it's event project management software, and it's a startup that was started by my client. Our CEO and founder is an event producer. He's got an event production services business and created Event Collab just out of pure necessity because there wasn't event project management tool out there. There wasn't a project management tool at all that really worked the way that he wanted it to. So he had it built. And so they actually hired me on a little bit earlier than maybe would be normal to see if it had legs. And the first product they had was Showbook. And then they were building Event Collab. So I was doing, which was really interesting. But as you know, like with any startup, I joke that I'm the doer of what needs to be done. Like I'm their marketer, but I pretty much do anything that needs to happen. So just to give you guys, that's my background in terms of why this subject is of interest to me, not just from marketing standpoint, but from events marketing standpoint. This is my jam. I love the events industry, and it was really exciting that I got a client that was kind of in that space. So I would love for you guys to tell us about your business, about your product, your startup products, kind of what you're up to, where you live, and all that kind of good stuff. Rachel, you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. Coming live to you from Montreal. This is where I call home. And like you, I live and breathe in events. So even though Snowball is a young little child, it is actually the child of a company that I started in 2001. So it's been a good 16 years. It's called Sense of Event Marketing. So what we do, we promote events. We do the marketing for conferences and events. And with the experience that we got with Sense of, it really inspired the Snowball as a product to help use influencer to promote an event. So our experience in launching a startup is practically new, but the experience in marketing events, it's been going on for a while. So it's an interesting, little twist when we can apply some of the stuff we've learned on Sense of on that one. On Snowball, we're still also learning how to market a specific technology for the event industry. So it's a nice challenge.
Very cool. And what is Snowball? Tell us about the product.
Well, Snowball, we know, and we're hearing a lot of buzz about influencer marketing, and how people are jaded with all the advertising that goes out, and you have to really stand out and work with your influencers to get a little bit the word out. So how do you apply that in the event industry and in conferences is really working with the people that have a stake in your event and want it to succeed. So working with the speakers, with the exhibitors, with the sponsors, with the committee, anybody's involved in that conference, and giving them a tool, which is Snowball, that kind of creates for them personalized, unique, branded landing pages with their specific information, so they can share it to their community, allowing the event planner to tap into a target audience that usually they don't have access to. So in a nutshell, that's what Snowball does, is leveraging the trust base that they have with those people to get the message out to a larger audience.
Fantastic. Love it. All right, Scott, what about you?
Yeah, so I'm based in Denver, Colorado. I'm actually a software developer by trade. So a couple of years ago, I went to a small beer event called the Great American Beer Festival. I don't know if you guys know it. It's the largest beer event in the U.S. And maybe in North America. I'm actually not sure if it qualifies for that or not. But like many beer festivals, I woke up the day after and I thought, wow, I had really great time. I tried all kinds of really interesting beer, and I have absolutely no idea what any of them are. And so the typical engineer in me, I started thinking about how could I make this experience better? How could I actually remember what I try and have some hope of finding it either in the liquor store or at the brewery after the fact? And so I started experimenting with all kinds of interesting technology, mobile technology, wireless technology, and I finally settled on this idea to use RFID, or more specifically NFC, to track what people try at these beer festivals and other types of tasting events. And so fast forward 2 years later, and Spigot Labs has been around for a couple of years now. We've got a little over 30 events under our belt. It actually encompasses not just the beer and tasting space, but also the traditional event space, where we provide more of like lead capture and session tracking, some pretty typical event tech sort of offerings. The great thing about the conference space was it offered a really good spot to sort of test out the technology and make sure things worked as expected. It's a really well-known model. And so making that work and making sure that it all functioned the way we expected it to function was a really great sort of start and training wheels for us. So yeah, the events that we do now, it's pretty fun. Here's a tasting glass actually from one of our events that we did in April. And we put a sensor just right on the bottom of the glass there. And so that's how people can track what they try. They can walk to each of the individual breweries where they're pouring the individual beers, and they can tap this glass and each beer to keep track of what they try. And of course, on the marketing side, there's a lot of interesting data being captured there as well. So we're able to feed demographic data back to the brewers, information about who came and visited them, who liked which beers, ratings, comments from individual attendees. And so this little idea of mine that I woke up with one morning has really turned into a pretty fun venture and something that keeps us busy all year round.
That's so cool. Yeah, it's funny because I was talking to Elizabeth Glau about your company, and I said, you know, when I go to wine festivals, like we just had the Food and Wine Festival here in San Diego, and I take pictures of labels. So yeah, it would be really cool if I didn't have to do that. Right? That's the thing. Yeah. Like, oh, that's good, but I'm not going to remember. So same idea.
Yeah. And after and drinks, it'll be foggy, all of it.
Yeah,
exactly. And I don't know about you, but I go back through my phone after one of those events, and I've got pictures of labels or pictures of breweries, and again, no context. It's like I took this picture for some reason, but I can't tell you why.
Right. So are you? So then the information is then being shared back to the individuals. How does that work?
Yeah, so I'm one of those people that's very anti-apps. I mean, in the event space, we know it well, right? Like people go to a conference and they're asked to download an app, and unless there's a real driver to get them to do it, you only get like a 30 to 40% engagement on average. You can push it higher, but it's really a struggle, and people don't want to download an app for just one event that lasts a couple of days. And so we've built our experience for those attendees all on mobile web. And so literally when someone walks into the festival and they get their tasting glass, I'll hold it up again. There's a little 4-digit code on the bottom of the tasting glass there. Okay. And so the first time they go to the Spigot Labs website, they can enter that 4-digit code, and that's what associates them with the glass they've been using.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, then once they're logged in for the first time, they have access to everything they've tried. They can click through each of the beers to see information about the brewery, information about the beer, to be able to check it in on Untapped or to follow the brewery on Twitter. All the sort of engagement points that you would sort of expect, from a lead capture type system.
How do they know which one they like the most?
Yeah, so there's no, that's a great question. There's a couple different ways that we track that. So for one, if they go back and try the same beer a second time, we automatically flag that as something that they probably liked. You typically wouldn't go get a second taste if you didn't like it. Mm-hmm. But additionally, for attendees that have logged in and are using the mobile web app, they can click each beer and then rate the beers between 1 and 5 stars for the ones that they liked. They can also take notes on the beers right there on their phone if they if they want to keep track of specific attributes of each one.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I had a question on that. What do you know what percentage of attendees are doing it? Like what the adoption rate is on?
Yeah, so it kind of varies from event to event. The 2 events that we did this year where we tracked adoption rates with basically very little orientation or advertising, the engagement rates were similar to an app. So they were between 30 and 40%. And so we've got some plans for the next few events that we're going to do to really drive that adoption and start to incentivize people to get logged in and rate at least 1 beer. So you sort of have the same problems of an app, but we've also tried to make the barrier to entry really, really low. Have
you thought about integration or tie-in to Untappd?
Yeah, so there actually is an integration to Untappd. So if you use Spigot Labs and track what you try at an event, from that same attendee dashboard with 1 click, you can push that taste into Untappd.
Right on.
Yeah,
that I like a lot because I forget to use Untappd. I like it, but I just it's not nearly a reflection of all the beers I've tried. That's for sure.
And it's a great social platform, but the searching aspect of it is really kind of cumbersome, especially when you're at a live event.
Right.
So kind of taking that piece out of it really simplifies it.
Very cool. All right. So what are your backgrounds? Rachel, what were you doing? Have you always kind of worked in this space, or what led you into working in events?
I come from a marketing background. So I've worked in agencies in the past, which had a different mix of consumer-based and more trade clients. And the last job I had before I started my business was in the events. So it was really focused on working in that space. And that's where I got my little introduction to the events world. And then I took the leap in 2001. And ever since, it's been always in the events. Before, it used to be like more corporate events and product launches and all that. And once I got into the conferences and the international congresses and all that, it was just like a straight line from there. I found my niche and found my passion.
Right, gotcha. Yeah, Scott, you said you're a software developer. What industry were you working before?
I worked in a few different industries. My first job out of college was working for a company that builds disk drives named Seagate. So I spent a lot of time with them. I think I was there almost 10 years. And then I moved to a small startup that was in the healthcare IT space. And then I did some consulting here and there for another storage company and for a couple of smaller companies based here in Denver. And then I went full-time with Spigot Labs. So it's been kind of all over the board: big companies, small companies, technology-focused companies, non-technology-focused companies.
And how many employees do you have?
So I'm the only full-time employee right now. We've got a number of people that we rely on, especially in the event space, being that it's so sporadic. When it comes to an event implementation, we typically need a lot of help. And then those periods kind of between events, it tapers off quite a bit. And so we've got kind of this handful of contractors and consultants that we rely on specifically for implementations, and then also for some other help around social and blogging, that type of thing.
That was my next question: is how are you marketing it? This is a marketing podcast after all.
Yeah.
So marketing a startup is it's a different animal than a very well established business or product. So what are you guys doing on that front?
Yeah, it's been a growing process for sure. I mean, I worked entirely in tech before, and so I've really had to grow into the sales and marketing role and really understand what works and what doesn't work. And so a big piece of it is our blog. I've been trying to produce regular blog posts on my own, and then I've also had a few guest speakers, including Elizabeth Glau, who you mentioned earlier, do some guest blogging for us as well. And then on the social media side, I tend to fill the pipeline with content about all of the spaces where my customers kind of operate. And so that goes, that includes breweries, that includes beer festivals, that includes conferences, that includes the types of content that event planners and event professionals want to see. So kind of this broad reaching events and festivals view of the world. And then, leading up to events where I'm really trying to drive attendance and trying to help my customers build bigger and more successful events. That's usually when I bring in one of my consultants to work on our social media feeds and just make sure that they stay in touch and well connected throughout that process. It also helps because typically around that time I'm pretty busy getting ready for the event and making sure things go smoothly. But overall it's been a learning experience for sure.
And what's your goal? Like to grow the business and have a full-time staff, or kind of what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I'd like to get to the point where we're doing a significant number of events per year. So this year we did 8 events. Last year we did 6 events. So it's been kind of on a slow growth path. A big part of it has been moving into new markets. So our first beer event was actually this year. And so we spent a lot of time making sure those beer events went smoothly. But going forward, I see it growing into events happening all over the U.S., not just in Colorado, and expanding to do more and more events. I'd like to get to the point where we're doing 100 or 150 events a year, honestly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Rachel, tell us about Snowball and kind of how you're marketing it, and actually first, you guys were just at IBTM World in the Innovation Zone. Yeah. I was there the last 2 years.
Okay.
Did not win. At that time, there was only one winner, no categories. So I'm super jealous that there were categories of awards. But being able to exhibit for free 2 years in a row was a blessing. Was amazing. So tell us about IBTM World and the award that you guys won and all that kind of good stuff.
All right. Well, you're asking about how we market the event. I mean, this is one way of doing it. And to be honest, I mean, Snowball only came into light in September this year. So it's been only a few months. It's been used in a really underground with our clients. And it's been a whirlwind, really, since we opened up the doors and let people in to see, this is what we're doing. It started with IMAX. That's where we submitted to these awards by encouragement by one of our biggest influencer, really, is Dahlia, that really kicked me. Then I was like, get it out there. It's a good one. So I actually did, and to my surprise and not, I mean, we got selected as finalists at IMAX also and at IBTM. So that was one way of promoting it. I did go to Las Vegas, but for Barcelona, Snowball is my business baby, but I had my own personal baby as well, so I couldn't go. So one of my colleagues, Tess Vismal, represented us there, and it was the first time we even go to IBTM, and also another surprise was that we had a booth and we had rounds of groups of people that are coming on the hour for demos and pitches and all that, and we were like tag teaming, me and Tess, really about what's going on. She's sending me photos, I'm posting. We're like constantly on social, on Twitter. I think we're quite active there. That we didn't win in the category that we were selected to be pitching for, but they had an award for all the exhibitors, the best use of PR at IBTM. And according to what we heard from them, was the first time ever it happens that a startup would win it over all the exhibitors that are present. So that's huge.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
And we're in the business of marketing and influencer marketing, and we win this award. It's like another nod that, we know what we're doing. It's all based also on the experience, backed by a sense of event marketing experience that, this space is really, it's our playground in a way.
Yes.
It's a business for influencer marketing. So we're working with influencers in the industry. Our target is event planners, associations, anybody who put together an event. So is identifying the key influencers in that space and trying to work with them. And honestly, everybody or anybody I do a demo for, they're pretty much sold before I even finish the pitch. And the pitch is 17-minute demo. And before the end, I was like, I get it. Oh God, it makes total sense. So it's been this is how we're building it. And next step is really building content around that, educating a little bit more about the influencer marketing is very well known as the consumer base, but how do you kind of bring it into the event space a little bit more and educate about that area and how it can be used to put butts in seats really for conferences using that marketing technique. What else? Partnering with different associations or events specifically. Like for example, right now we're working with PCMA for convening leaders to Snowball their event. We did it also not long ago for another event that was a virtual summit, about 1,000 people, association directors, and that week that they had it, we were like the demos were coming in nonstop for them. So it's also like converting quite nicely there as well. So it's really being smart about where we spent our time because we're limited on resources and you just have to make the most of what you have and, you know, make it work.
Yeah. Scaling is a challenge, right? With any startup is if you're growing as quickly as you seem to be. It's amazing. I had no idea that you guys just launched in September. That's cool. Very cool. So, and your goal with, well, and I love that it's a verb too. Like
we snowballed it. Yes.
So awesome.
We want to snowball as many events as possible. and the idea also is to work with, you know, like third-party partners, for example, that they can have their own account and they can snowball as many events that they want on their own. So they're not really tied to us as well. So yeah.
That'll help you scale.
Yeah, exactly. When it's been requested, I mean, because it's in the launching phase, so this is like a first phase, and hearing all the feedback from the different types of people that would use it and their needs, we're also integrating that and making it part of our roadmap on the long term. Yeah,
I'm sure Scott can relate to that. Yeah, that's the deal, right? Especially when you're new. Same thing. With Event Collab, always when I'm demoing it, getting asked questions that that really make us think like, oh, it doesn't do that, but that's a great idea.
Exactly. Well, that's the best way to do it because it's almost your focus group, live focus group, evolving focus group all the time. That you always get that feedback and build it in if it makes sense.
Right. So are you in beta? Are you considered yourself in beta still, or are you fully launched? Are you beta stage or
it's fully launched, but there'll definitely be different versions as we go too. So integrating all these will be part of it, and we're also like the whole multilingual aspect of it too. That it also supports that because we're in Montreal, we're Canada, so we're getting a lot of requests also for French as well. So building and for Spanish, and if we do the Middle East, there's possibilities to kind of adapt to every. Not every, but the main languages.
Gotcha. Scott, sorry, I interrupted you before. Did you?
Oh, I was just going to say, I can definitely relate to the idea of, every demo you give, you end up with 10 new ideas for something else to add or some extension that you could do. That's really fun and really challenging at the same time, I think, to be able to distill that down and say, yep, this makes sense to include in the product and we should prioritize it. Versus, oh, that's a really fun idea, but I'm not sure that it's something that we should really build in.
Yeah, that's true. From a marketing standpoint, it's hard for me to not be talking about and trying to market the things that are still in development.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, they're holding me back. Already, and like anything else. Takes 3 times as long, it costs 3 times as much, right, Scott?
Yep. Yeah, and it's funny for me to sort of be in the other role too. Having a whole background in engineering, and always sort of like cursing the sales and marketing guys, like, oh man, they promised this thing, and there's no way that we're going to be able to deliver it. And of course now, like, I'm doing the exact same thing. Like I'm talking about so many features that are sort of just on the horizon, and promising that as part of the marketing. And it's
it's testing the markets too.
It is. That's part of it.
Because you have to see what the feedback is, and it's like if you see like, oh, they're clicking on that thing, well, yeah, you know what? It's making it to the top priority to get it done as fast as possible.
And hopefully, because I do have some engineering experience, I at least know how much trouble it's going to be to implement it.
You have an edge there.
Yeah.
So Scott, do you have a goal to grow into other industries with this? Do you see other applications?
Yeah, I talked about how we sort of started using the conference space as kind of our training wheels. I very frequently think of other industries where this could fit. I think any sort of tasting event, whether that's wine or beer or coffee or food or some combination of those things. I mean, there's always really
chili.
Interesting. Yeah, chili. There's always really, really interesting. There's a lot of interesting data there that people just aren't capturing today. And so I think almost any event, whether it's experiential or whether it's more traditional, there's information that can be captured and then packaged up as marketing material to those vendors and built as ROI for next year's vendors so that they can understand, what is it worth for me to buy a booth at this conference or to enter my chili in this contest. And so I think in some ways the marketing angle is sort of leading the way because the more I learn about the marketing side, the more interesting different types of events and verticals start to look.
Right on. Well, that went fast now, didn't it?
I know.
We're almost done, but I want you guys to let everyone know how they can find your business and you, and give us a scoop, whatever, whether it's websites, your Twitter or whatever. Rachel?
Okay, well, the website is Snowball. Snowball, there's no W, so SNOBALL.events. That's the website. And from there, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. My personal email is rachel@snowball.events.
Awesome. Scott?
Yeah, so Spigot Labs, Spigot, like the little spigot on the front of your house. So SPIGOT labs.com. You can find us there. And then my personal email is scott@spigotlabs.com. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We typically spend a lot of time on Twitter more for conferences and more of sort of the traditional event professional space. I think there's a lot of event professionals that are well engaged on Twitter. And then for some of the beer festival stuff, we spend more time on Facebook. So if you want to check out our beer festival events, you can look at our Facebook page.
Gotcha. Right on. And now I neglected to even say my name, I think, in the beginning. So I'm Megan Powers. If you're watching, you see that. But if you're listening, you didn't get that at all. And I kick it off that way. So I am Megan Powers with Powers of Marketing. And my Twitter is @MeganPowers. Funny enough. So I really appreciate that you guys could come on with me today. Thanks so much for taking the time. And for those listening or watching on the replay, thank you for that as well. Feel free to share it. We'd love for, we didn't get a lot of live viewers, which I kind of expected today, but hopefully everyone will listen on the replay. This has been episode 7 of Making a Marketer, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you for having us. Take care.